Alright, I am back for another video, and for this video we're going to actually get the truck to make some good power with the turbo setup that's on it. The last video we just installed everything, and I've been driving it for a solid, since last weekend basically. I've been driving it for quite a while now, and it's been pretty good. It's given me a few issues, but the issues that I had were because of stuff totally unrelated to any of this, which was really stupid, but we'll explain some of that later. But I got a few things in the mail for the fuel system, so I'm going to show you guys what I have. This is a Turbo Smart fuel cut defender. So basically what it is this little tiny computer box thing. It sets a restriction or a cap basically on the voltage output of the factory map sensor, so I can use it to block out certain higher signals from the map sensor. So basically I'm just going to use it to prevent the ECU from getting any signals over what would be the equivalent to zero vacuum. Basically that's what I'm going to do. That way, since I'm running an FMU, of course, it'll basically be like a Miata setup, whereas the Miatas just have that flap style mass airflow sensor. So once that thing's all the way open, that's the max that the sensor can send anyway. The map sensor's a little bit different, and some ECUs have a fuel cut thing put into it. I just don't want it to know it's in boost, because the FMU can do all the work from there. And if the ECU starts compensating or trying to do any sort of safety deals to get it out of boost, then I'm going to have issues. So that's that. I got some hole saws so I can mount gauges. This is the one that I'm going to actually end up needing. This is like a $6 set on eBay. Really cheap garbage, but they'll work. Got some NGK spark plugs. These are 2 steps colder than the stock plugs, because of course you got to go 2 steps colder when you're running. I'm running, the maximum to run is about 8 pounds of boost, so I'm just going to go 2 steps colder to be safe. And I'm going to close the gap. I think the factory gap is 0.35. Yeah, 0.35. I'm going to go down to 0.30, close the gap a little bit just to make sure I don't have any misfires or anything when it's in boost. And then we got the AEM Wideband, which I've already opened and messed with. I already stuck the sticker up on the hood, as you can see. Instruction booklet, some little info thing. There's the actual gauge itself. They gave me an O2 sensor bung, which is kind of cool actually, and some butt connectors down there. This is the harness that supplies power and stuff to the ECU, and I think a couple of these are an output. Say if you had an aftermarket ECU like a Megasquirt or a Haltech or anything like that, or another AEM ECU, it's because this thing can also function as like a wideband controller. That's what some of those are for, I think. I haven't actually looked to see, so I could just be talking out my ass. But this is the one that goes from the wideband O2 sensor to the gauge, and that's what the back of it looks like. You just got 2 plugs. That's just a box. It's actually not a bad looking box, which is nice, and it's got some weird face on the bottom of it. I have no idea who that is, but it has that on the bottom of it, which is kind of funny, because that was what I opened first when I opened the box from the bottom of it, because when it's closed up it's a little bit weird, like kind of hard to tell. The other thing I got was the FMU, which I already installed, and it's probably a good thing that I installed that already, is because it caused me all kinds of grief, which I will talk about. I'll probably make a whole separate video on that because it was pretty bad, but I'll just go over this since I've already installed it already and kind of explain how this thing works. So this is the cheapest FMU you can get on eBay. This is not the one I wanted to get. I wanted to get the SPA composite one, but they are out of stock, and they have been for a couple months now, I think, actually. So I just bought the cheapest one I could get on eBay. I'm going to either get the SPA adjustable one, or if that one's still out of stock, I'm just going to order the Vortec one with a complete disc set so I can fine-tune everything. But basically how this works, so this little 90, this front line running into it, runs from my stock fuel pressure regulator up into the FMU, and then this line right here, which is towards the center of the bottom of the FMU, is the outlet, which runs back to my fuel tank. And then I've got this line hooked up to the intake manifold, which is to reference boost, and then the thing's just mounted up with some self-tappers and this little cheap little bracket that they give you. And basically it's supposed to be a 12-to-1 fuel ratio, so for every 1 pound of boost that gets into it, it's going to raise my fuel pressure 12 psi, and that is where the extra fuel comes from when I'm in boost. And ideally how it should work is the ECU won't even know it's in boost, so it'll just open the injectors and give the proper amount of fuel for zero vacuum, and then the extra pressure, fuel pressure from the FMU adds the extra little bit of fuel that it needs for every, for whatever amount of boost you're in. That's how this thing is going to work. So I'm going to set it up that way the ECU never knows it's in boost, doesn't try to compensate, doesn't try to do anything. So that's how that thing works. There's like a diaphragm in here and a disc that pushes down on a button which blocks off the return line, and that's how your pressure goes up, basically by just creating a restriction. That's already in. That really, it took like 10 minutes to install it. Just some self-tappers, cut a line, hose clamp it, and done. But it caused me a lot of grief later on. I'm going to make a separate video, like I said, about it because it was really bad. But basically, don't buy this. Do not buy the JDM, Sport JDM FMU. If you're going to buy an FMU, go with the SPA Composite, which seems good. I know a few people who've run them and liked them. Or, of course, there's the good old Vortec. Just go with one of those two. They both, SPA is actually cheaper than this one, or about the same price. The Vortec is significantly more expensive, but it's a way, way better piece than that is. So don't use one of these. Don't trust it. Don't touch it. Don't do anything with one of those. Don't do it. It's just nothing but problems. You're going to end up breaking stuff or just not be able to use it and end up having to spend money on a different FMU anyway, like I'm going to. The next thing I want to install then is the fuel cut defender and my spark plugs. I'm going to go ahead and get these two knocked out of the way, and then the truck will basically be running how it's supposed to be, and I will just be able to install the AEM AFR gauge. And then I also need to get a boost gauge. So I ordered one. It is not here yet. It might not even be here tomorrow, but I'm gonna need it. So oddly enough, Harbor Freight actually sells a boost gauge. It's the only automotive gauge that they sell, and it's a boost gauge. I don't know why, but I'm not complaining. I'm gonna go down there tomorrow and buy one if mine is not going to be here by tomorrow. I'm just gonna drive out to Harbor Freight, pick one of those up, and then I ordered like the really cheap, just a real cheap basic mechanical boost gauge on eBay. It was the same one that came in my old eBay turbo kit from way back. So if once it gets here and I decide not to swap it into this, I'll stick one of the other boost gauges I have, whichever one I choose not to use in the truck. I'll just stick it in the PT Cruiser or something and use that. I'm going to install this first, so I'm just going to explain real quick how I'm going to go about it. So the first thing I need to do is find the output wire from this map sensor. So how I'm going to do that is I'm going to pull this plug and I'm going to turn the ECU on, not turn the actual truck on, but just turn the ECU on. And then I'm going to see which of these three wires has a like 8 or 5 volt signal running to it. Whichever one has like 5 or 8 volts or whatever running to it, that is the restricted power coming from the ECU into it. That is not the signal coming out. Once that's done, I'm going to go through the other 2 wires that are still remaining. I'm going to hook voltmeter up to the positive and then test both of those and see which of them is a ground. Once I know which one is the signal coming from the ECU and which one is the ground, the third wire is obviously the output, the one that has no power running into it or out of it at all. Is going to be the output from the map sensor going to the ECU. That's the wire I need to tap into to hook this guy up into. So I'm probably just going to end up mounting it like up here somewhere. I might end up running it upside down, I'm not really sure. But I'm going to mount it up here by the FMU just because that's a good spot for it. And I'm going to find out which of these wires is the one that I want, and then I'm going to pick it up out of the harness back here so I don't have wires wrapping all over the place. And then I'm going to hook those into it. I have to hook power and ground to this thing. I'm assuming I'm going to open up the instruction manual that's online for it and just make sure I got my wires straight. And then from there, what I'm going to do is I'm going to set the settings up. I'm going to max out the release all the way to setting 10. That way basically it never releases, because what this is supposed to do is allow you to raise your factory fuel cut. So you would set it to clamp, which would basically mean it's going to lock the voltage signal at a set point, and then you can set the release to let it go. That way you still have a fuel cut on your vehicle, but I'm not going to have one. I'm just going to set it to release at setting 10, so it'll never make enough boost or a high enough signal to actually release it. That's how I'm going to set this thing up. Changing spark plugs, whatever, you guys don't need to see that. I'm going to close the gap up, swap those out. These two plugs right here are going to be really fun to get to, thanks to me, you know, putting a turbo right there in the way. But that's those. Once that's done, we will start installing the wideband, and then tomorrow I'll get a boost gauge, whether I get mine in the mail or I just drive out to Harbor Freight and buy one. I'm not going to buy the AutoZone one because it's like $40 for the same thing I can get at Harbor Freight. I have found the wire that I need to splice into, and I've got it cut in half right here. Here's one end, here's the other end. This is the signal from this map sensor, which is this middle wire, runs up through here. If I turn the truck on, it reads like pretty much basically 8 volts. So that's where I need to set this Turbo Smart to restrict it at, or that way it can't go any higher above that. Now I'm going to look up the wiring diagram for this, figure out which wire's what. Probably gonna mount this guy up over here somewhere, and then I'll be able to change plugs out, and this is going pretty quick, so I might be able to actually get a wideband put in here. Fuel cut defender is installed, and I've adjusted it so I maxed out the release. So basically it's set at its highest setting, so it just plain won't release. This right here is the clamp. Basically when it clamps, it locks at a certain voltage. So if I turn this thing back, that green light comes on, turn it up, it goes off. So that green light comes on when the thing is clamping, when it's restricting voltage. So basically what I need to do for this particular application is I need to just come up here and turn it until like right where it shuts off. I need to do a little bit more zip tying up here, I think, and try to get some wires resituated. Now I'm going to change spark plugs, and it's getting a tiny bit late. Yeah, 7:42. I am not going to have time to install the wideband before work, so I will do that tomorrow. But with this done, I'm going to change the plugs out, get them gap right, put them in, and then all I will need to do is install the wideband gauge and then drive out to Harbor Freight and pick up a boost gauge, as long as my boost gauge says it's still not going to be here tomorrow. And then we'll be able to go do some polls, check out the AFRs, see how much boost we are actually making. Tomorrow I will get back with you guys and we will start installing the wideband, and then we'll make a trip out to Harbor Freight or something, and somehow I'll end up with a boost gauge. We'll get gauges in and we'll be able to go do some polls, see what my AFRs look like, see how much boost I'm making, and see how much power it makes. Alright, I'm back. I just woke up probably an hour ago, and I just got up and started working on this a little bit. I left the camera out here and it was dead, so I went and charged it and just started taking the dash out, or well, not the old whole dash, but this piece, and I went and cut the inserts out for the air vents. So now what I'm gonna do, I got this old oil pan gasket box. I'm going to use this to make a template for a plate of steel that I'm going to be bolting up right over this. I'm going to bolt it, cut it real nice, paint it, make it look good, bolt it to this, and then I got the hole saws. This is the 1 1/8 inch, which is exactly what fits the gauges, and it fits in here good. I've got probably enough room to fit 4 gauges, make 4 holes, and then up here I'm going to put a plate here, but I'm not going to put anything in it. Probably going to make like a switch panel or something. I want to be able to have a switch panel up top somewhere where it's really easy for me to access when I'm driving, because right now the only place I can put switches is down below the steering wheel, which is kind of out of reach a little bit and kind of hard to find switches, because it's where like my override switch for the fans is at and stuff. And then I'll go trace it onto a sheet of steel that I already had. It's actually the steel that I used to make that fake like that empty compressor or turbine housing out of for the exhaust when I first mocked it up. And get that cut. Once it's cut right and I've got holes drilled, and then I'll paint it. It's really windy right now, so hopefully it'll go away a little bit. Bolt it back up, and then I'll be able to start, while I'm waiting for the paint to dry, I'll probably start installing this, and then my boost gauge is going to be here later as well. Then I need to go out and grab the steel out of the shed, get it cut, painted it, let it dry, and then I'll start installing this wideband while it's all drying. So I've made quite a bit more progress. I got the plates done for this. They're sitting outside drying though, so I'll wait to show you guys those. My boost gauge did come in the mail today. It's a real cheap eBay boost gauge. Ran the vacuum line in for it. It's right here. I've just got it sticking up right here. And then I've got the harness that runs from the O2 sensor in. I got the O2 sensor in the exhaust. Got it ran through the firewall and in here. So everything that I need on the outside of the car for the gauges has been ran in. The boost line and the O2 sensor line, everything else I have in here already, because for power I'm just gonna borrow some leads from either this right here, the radio stuff, or I'm gonna tap into the cigarette lighter, one of the two, and then I can use this thing for the illumination because I don't even need this. I'm just gonna unplug it and use these wires. We'll be good to go. We'll be able to turn the truck on and test the gauges out, which is pretty cool. This one, the hole saw I bought, didn't work, so I had to just go ahead and do it with the Dremel, and the gauges will hide all that. But yeah, those are that. This is just a block off plate for the other one. I'm not putting anything in it. It's this front one right there. It's the wideband for the AEM, and then my factory one is directly behind that. So all of that is done. One thing I didn't show you guys yesterday that I did was for my fans. I wired them into the same signal wire that the fuel cut defender is in. So now my fans actually shut off when I turn the truck off, which is nice. So I've got to hook up power, ground, signal, illumination, all that stuff up to the gauges, and then I need to put the dash back in, turn the truck on, test them out, see how it works, and then we'll go drive it, see how my AFRs are, see how much boost we're making, and see how well it pulls. Okay, I got all the gauges in. I got my dash put back in, bolts and stuff. The gauges are on. Boost gauge is on right there. AEM is on, and right now it's reading like maximum because it's, you know, it's on and it's warm, but there's no exhaust flowing through it, so it's reading like infinite, you know, air basically. They are there. I'm gonna go in and I'm gonna tweak the boost cut defender a little bit, and then we're gonna go take it for a drive, see what my AFRs look like, and finally see how much boost this thing makes. Okay, the wideband is working as it should. So I'm gonna get out on the road, and as long as there's nobody in front of me, I'm gonna stick it in second gear and let it eat until it either, basically let it eat unless it starts leaning out. If it runs rich, I'm fine with that, because rich is safe. If it runs lean, I'm gonna have to get out of it. Okay, stab the throttle just a little bit. That blow-off valve. Oh, you guys haven't heard that yet. There's no blow-off valve. It's all turbo surge, and it sounds amazing. I've got it locked into second gear right now. All right, let's go for it. That was really, really good. Those AFRs were really good. It got all the way down into the 11s. Wow, I didn't pay attention to how much boost it made, but the AFRs got all the way down into the 11s like they should, but I didn't have any breakup or anything. Let's bump it down to second again. Let's see. It's great. I need to mess around with the AFRs. Made about 5 or 6 pounds of boost, which is really, really good. It's about where I wanted to be. But I think that's going to be the end of the video. AFRs, I need to tweak the FMU and stuff. I'm going to probably just hook the line straight from the turbo up to it and see what happens. But that's where I'm going to end the video for you guys. I want to thank you all very much for watching, and I will see you all in the next one.